He tries a later turn-in, but that chops up his brake release. A little earlier runs him too wide and the throttle goes off and on. Right after it, he carves a clean line and, most importantly, the throttle control is great.
Let's look at some cornering theory. What kind of line would allow you to get back on the gas most easily for good throttle control throughout the corner? One that starts here?
No.
Good. One that starts here?
No.
All right. How about this one? Starts here?
Yes.
Good. There are actually 11 ways your turn entry position or your turn-in point affects how you corner. First, let's look at your overall corner speed.
He's taking an early turn-in, resulting in an inside line. It's plenty fast coming in, but slower mid-turn and exit. Turning in later, trying to straighten out the turn, allowed him to get back on the gas earlier. Your entry point has a huge effect on overall corner speed. While the low inside entry had a high approach speed, it was slower mid-corner and exit. The higher outside turn entry allows him to point the bike more towards the exit. Even before mid-corner, he's back on the gas. Now let's look at how entry point affects braking. Your beginning and ending brake points are both modified by where you start your turn. On the low inside line, you're leaned over longer and brake pressure is critical because it's easy to lock up the front wheel. On the later turn entry, it's easier and safer because more braking is done with less lean angle, and it most often is completed earlier, allowing the rider to get back on the gas. This is a huge difference. If the pavement was slippery, which line would you choose? Finishing the braking earlier or later? Your turn-in point determines that. Let's follow him in on the high line. He ends his braking just as he's flicking it in, and he gets a better drive. By the way, even though it's usually a minor point, downshifting is another thing that is affected by where you turn in. Of the key tools of turning, one is how quickly you can get the bike over. It's easy to see how the early and later entries compare in this regard. The low entry requires lazy steering. You can't flick the bike onto its line. The later turn-in allows for a decisive steering commitment to the turn. Mid-corner and exit stability and speed start when the gas comes on. Watch both lines to see where the gas comes back on. Our later entry rider was able to get back on the gas 37 feet earlier. That's 5 bike lengths. Earlier on the gas means stability through more of the corner. Your turn-in position has an enormous effect on that. That's 6 points so far. A good drive off the turn is number 7. Low line entry checks your drive because number 8 on the list, lean angle, also comes into play. You are leaned over further and longer from a low line entry. Seeing a line that is taking you too wide does not inspire confidence. Seeing one that points you further up the road does. Number 10 is how much road you have at the widest point of your exit. On the street, the same principle applies. Staying in your lane through the middle and exit of the turn is all easier with a later entry point. This helps reduce panic and provides riders with a greater margin of error in regard to oncoming traffic. The 11th and final aspect that is affected by our turn point is mid-corner lean angle correction. While they may seem like a fact of life, they're a common rider error that results from this same tech point: early turn entry. Throttle control rule number 1. The clean, continuous roll-on is always easier once you have established a workable turn point. The single biggest cause of SR number 1, going off the gas when you should be rolling on, is a bad line. We now know all 11 aspects of your riding that are affected by your turning point. Let's quickly review them. 1. Where the brakes go on. 2. Where the brakes go off. 3. Where the throttle comes back on. 4. Where the bike is pointed once fully leaned over. 5. Where will you finish the turn? How wide will you run at the exit? 6. Where will you downshift? 7. How much lean angle will you use? 8. How many, if any, steering corrections will you make? 9. How quickly or slowly will you have to steer the bike? 10. How much speed you can approach the turn with? 11. How quickly or slowly the throttle may be applied. Good. Those are the 11 things affected by your turning point. Now, let's look at how quickly you turn the bike and how that affects your cornering. How quickly do you need to turn? Not very quick in this situation. It would be silly to quick flick the bike when you don't need to. Here's the perfect